A simple Google search will tell you that 3,898,000 students graduated this academic year, only from the United States, majoring in software-related degrees, such as computer science and IT. So if we pull up the approximate data of people entering the software market every year across the globe, we might actually skip the whole discussion. While students are graduating in crazy numbers, a simple scroll on LinkedIn is enough to vouch for the unemployment, which is spread far and wide. So the industries are growing, jobs are being automated, which needs people skilled in software and related subjects. But the graduates are unemployed. How does this equation not fall balanced? To address these issues, a recent survey of employers demonstrated that the majority of college degrees are redundant and don't equip students with the necessary employable skills. In the software industry itself, many people are losing jobs because of a lack of up-to-date skills. At Archi's Academy, we provide training for project management, product development, and program development so that, along with your college degree or previous experience, you also have experience in the market. At Archi's, we mentor you with hands-on training, live projects, and interactive online classes which not only skill you for the job in the future, but also upskill your already existing ones. With our add-on coaching for interview and communication skills, we make sure that you do what you say, and you say what you do. Our placement and support are extended to you even after your traineeship ends, so that the transition process is easy and you are fully prepared to code away. Be at Archi's. Code your future. A simple Google search will tell you that 3,898,000 students graduated this academic year, only from the United States, majoring in software-related degrees, such as computer science and IT. So if we pull up the approximate data of people entering the software market every year across the globe, we might actually skip the whole discussion. While students are graduating in crazy numbers, a simple scroll on LinkedIn is enough to vouch for the unemployment, which is spread far and wide. So the industries are growing, jobs are being automated, which needs people skilled in software and related subjects. But the graduates are unemployed. How does this equation not fall balanced? To address these issues, a recent survey of employers demonstrated that the majority of college degrees are redundant and don't equip students with the necessary employable skills. In the software industry itself, many people are losing jobs because of a lack of up-to-date skills. At Archi's Academy, we provide training for project management, product development, and program development so that, along with your college degree or previous experience, you also have experience in the market. At Archi's, we mentor you with hands-on training, live projects, and interactive online classes which not only skill you for the job in the future, but also upskill your already existing ones. With our add-on coaching for interview and communication skills, we make sure that you do what you say, and you say what you do. Our placement and support are extended to you even after your traineeship ends, so that the transition process is easy and you are fully prepared to code away. Be at Archi's. Code your future.
Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. Yet another session with Archi's Academy. Today, we're going to have an interactive session with one of our mentors from Google. His name is You Quan, and he's going to interact with our trainees and answer a few of the questions a general guidance in terms of how, as in a career, how they should proceed in terms of a like what kind of technical skills they required, how we can prepare themselves in terms of interviews, and various so forth. So my name is Toffee. I'm the CEO and founder of Archie's Academy. I welcome you all. Today we will have few of the trainees also joining along with the discussion, so that can be like more interactive session. And if you have any kind of questions which you want to pop up with the audience which we are here, please ask in the chat channel in the various platforms which we have been broadcasting in YouTube, in LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. And if you have time permitted, we will be asking those questions. And with no further ado, I would like to invite all the rest of the people, You Quan and the Archie's Academy team. Hey, You Quan, welcome back again. Thank you so much for joining. Really.
Hi. Hi, Tofi. Hi, everyone.
Along with us today, we have people from various part of the world. Yukwan, you're joining from US, and we have Vinayak and Shivam is from India. Ajay is from Turkey, and Anna is joining from Dubai. So we are like pretty much in every time zones at this point of time. We have joined here. I really appreciate all of you guys taking your time over the weekend to come and join and participate this question, this interactive session. So Yukwan, just to make sure the people who might be joining for the first time or the trainees you already know, like who you are, can you give just a 1 minute introduction of yourself? If people are joining for the first time, it would be great.
Yeah, sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is You Quan. I've been working at Google as a software engineer for about 5 years. Initially, I started out in Google as a front-end software engineer. Later, I moved to do machine learning infrastructure instead. So now I'm working more on using Python and maintaining open source um, package. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Yukon, for that introduction. Again, if people who are in Archie's Academy is very well aware of Yukon by now, and if you're outside, he's one of our mentor who would like to guide the people through the journey of unknown in terms of getting through them into a skills which is required to become an amazing product engineer or software developer engineer. And then we have Ajay here, who is our director in training and management, and then we have few trainees also joined. To start with, I'll pass one by one the way how we are gonna structure this is more of an interactive way. So I would like to have come across few questions if you already have. So I'll first start with Ajay. According to you, with our trainees mostly asking questions, like, do you have any questions to pop out to you, Kwan, and then we can add along.
Hi everyone, I'm Ece. I'm from Turkey. As Sophie said, I'm the director of training in Archi's, and most of the times our trainees are wondering about his journey as a senior software developer. How did you start? How did you become there? And yeah, they want to know about it.
Yeah, so I'd say that so as a software engineer, I guess most people some people graduate from college with a degree in computer science, but also some people come from other fields. Could be math, could be physics, could be engineering, and they are interested in computer science or programming or creating software, and so they get into a company. So the the so part of it through the process of getting into a company is the interviews, right? So preparing for interviews is a very important part of the journey to present, to show your skills, to also put your experiences in a resume, how to present it such that recruiters will be interested and reach out. So that's one part of it. But after going through the interviews, um, uh, within the company itself, there is the progression as a software engineer. So, for example, learning about working with people, learning how to deal with a large code base, learning how to make sure that your work is moving forward, and also with many people contributing the same code base, how do you make sure that your code is clean, is maintainable, and then your progress is not blocking other people and so on. So these are skills that are become more developed after working as a software engineer, how to work with other people, interpersonal skills, and so on. And of course, technical skills as well, how to learn quickly about a piece of code quickly so that you can ramp up and then learn the framework, the technologies associated with it. But the most important part of it is just understanding like what really one is interested about, and also what keeps you moving forward, the passion, the joy. So for example, like reading a piece of code can be dry, then what is it that keeps you going? What is it that keeps you motivated to keep going forward, becoming better as a software engineer? So these are things that one learns to develop as one progresses as a software engineer. So and further down the road, as a software engineer progresses, then usually one will take on more responsibilities and be responsible like for part of the code base. So then one person, that person will be in charge of, for example, code reviews, in charge of making sure that code base stays clean, well tested, and so on. And so then as one's responsibility grows, as one's technical ability grows, then slowly over time, then this will show up. And then that's when one progresses, like through, let's say, recommendation of others, going through a promotion, and then becoming more and more going up the ladder. Yeah.
Just one more question. So you said that you learn how to collaborate with people when you start working in a company. Is that the main difference? Because there are lots of people who are trying to learn coding on their own. Sometimes they purchase a, let's say, pre-recorded course, which they cannot really collaborate with people. They're working on their local. Is it the main difference with a work experience versus learning on your own?
Yeah, I say that there are. I would say that is one of the main differences. Part of yes, working with other people, working with project managers, working with other coders, and also working with people from other teams and so on, that interpersonal relationships. And also even though just it might seem as though coders just sit on a computer whole day and just type away, but actually there's a lot more behind the scenes, whereby the way that a person structure the code, or work through the whole project, can actually help to unblock other teams, or help to make it easier for other people to work with you, or your project or your framework. So then this is something that is difficult to experience when one is learning by themselves, or is just in a self-contained environment whereby they just study themselves. Yeah, I agree that is quite difficult to experience. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for stating that, because this is one of the main strategies we follow at Archie's. We make sure that people work in a team, and this team is usually like us, with people from different parts of the world. Yeah, thanks for that. Sophie, back to you.
Thank you. I mean, very valid questions, and the answer which You Quan just said, that, like, there's a famous quote. I overuse it nowadays. I probably that, like, anybody can code. Like, it's not something that's too hard. If somebody who spent few hours in YouTube, and then, or maybe in other platforms, to just learn how to write a few lines of code, in a way, anybody can code. There is no issues. But coding with the respective of process, basically how, as you can stated it, like how it can be maintainable code. Like if somebody tomorrow joining your team, if they are looking at the code and they don't understand it, that's a failure of a team, not just one person, that's a failure of the team. That's where mostly the importance of code reviews comes into the picture. The senior software engineer or a senior engineer, what you Quan state is very well valid, more towards when you climb your ladders, and the possibility, if you are getting more and more responsibilities, you might not be able to find time to code. But that's the reality, is where you want to work with junior developers, mid-level developers, to make sure that you are going to be that person responsible for that code, hence maintaining that standards. So that's an important word, standard. Every company has a standard. Google has a set standard, and most of the time Google's standard is what's been reflected in most companies, because that's the one of the best software company which you can ask for. Everybody's dream to reach into Google. That's a and why that is because there is a standard which kept it, and people try to maintain it in such a way that when we write a code, when we collaborate with somebody, you maintain it, so it's like in a universal standard. So that's one of those things which in the universities or a college, most of the time they don't teach, or that's not in the curriculum for them, because it's very difficult as an academic who never worked in a company, may not be able to understand the fact that it's in the tech industry that's being used. So just like getting the fact of a diploma or a degree, people has to have the skills to communicate and to make sure work together each other in one direction. So like Ajay said, that's one of the key differences what we at Archie's follow very strictly, to make sure that the people know how to work with each other. And like mentors like you are responsible to make sure that our next generation, or the people who are coming out with zero experience, in a short period of time, how we can guide them to get an experience, to get them into a more and more job opportunities. So really thank you so much, Yukon, for getting that answer, and Ajay, for that valid that question. I would like to go to now to India. Let Shivam, I would like to have a question. If you have anything, why don't you ask Yukon?
Hi, You Quan. I think we both had a mentor ours one-on-one, like 1 month back. Yeah, so like, how does problem solving, like, is important in becoming a good coder? Like, I just want to know how is problem solving is going to help me to become a good coder.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Shivam, for the question. So with regards to problem solving, there are a number of different companies that actually try to access candidates' problem solving skills. So this on the on, let's say, an interview, there are different companies which do interviews differently. So for example, for big tech companies, for example, like Google, Facebook, or Meta, and Amazon, all that, they tend to test the engineer on more coding questions nowadays. In the past, Google had used some brain teasers, but then they realized that it doesn't really help to determine if the candidate is actually would actually be a good fit for the company. So they dropped that. So nowadays, for technical interviews at the big tech companies, mostly is more focused on coding, algorithmic problem solving. So that is a particular subset of skills that is more focused on the ability to solve a problem in a algorithmic way, and then trying to optimize for the if you've taken a course on algorithms before, then you will learn about the efficiency, about the runtime and complexities, the space and time complexities. So these are the things that these are the things that are being evaluated, the ability to consider all those complexities in the mind, and then do some trade-offs. If in the algorithm, it depends on the question. A good interview question would have multiple solutions, and some of the solutions might have different trade-offs in terms of the space and time complexity. So then it tests a candidate's ability to solve the problem, other than like a naive brute force method. So this is this is one part that would be useful. And I would say that this problem solving ability is something that can be trained, is something that can be through practice. One can get the understanding of how, for example, to improve algorithms or to see certain patterns that allow someone to actually make an algorithm run faster. Yeah. And there are many such platforms out there nowadays already. So I'm sure Archie has some resources with regards to that. So that is one part of it. I would say that on the other hand, there is another group of companies, for example, the financial companies, fintech, for example, quant finance companies like Jane Street, or maybe big banks like Chase. So when they look for certain engineers, they are also testing their problem-solving ability. So some of them still use the brain teasers. So and they, as a practice, they actually often ask each other brain teasers within the company themselves, so that they keep themselves fresh with the brain teasers in case they need to jump ship, they need to find a new job or something. So again, this is something that can be practiced, but this is more of a practice in the fintech companies from what I know. Yeah. So this is the part whereby problem solving skills are important for the interview process or getting into a company. Then within a company itself, once you get in, then there are other skills that are more important, like what we mentioned, the interpersonal skills with the team, learning how to work and ask questions. Actually, for me, because I came from a background whereby I learned programming myself, so a lot of things initially I tried to just go through the code base and try to understand things myself, and later on in my career, I realized that it's actually faster and easier if I just reach out and talk to other people and ask from a senior engineer, hey, could you do a walkthrough of this code base with me, or ask some history question about the code base and why is it designed like this. Then from there, actually, I can learn faster. So that was what Tofi mentioned earlier as well. The interactions with people, that's very important. The other part about problem solving, going back to that, because after understanding the code base, the next part is, okay, now I want to create a new feature, or I want to do some work with the code base. Then sometimes it requires, sometimes the work might be simple, like refactoring a code base, or trying to make it easier for make the framework easier to use, making the code a bit better, adding a new feature and so on. But sometimes there are limitations in the framework that we're using. Like, for example, in certain languages, for example, in React, there are certain conventions or certain things that has to be done in the framework itself. So sometimes the things that needs to be done on the UI may not exactly fit into that framework. Then that requires some creative problem solving. So of course, nowadays a lot of these type of answers are already on the internet. So for example, if you face something with the React framework, definitely you can look up online and find some solution. But if not, then sometimes people look up Stack Overflow and find that, oh no, someone has asked a question from 5 years ago, but there were no answers. Then you have to be creative. So that's where problem solving skills come in. And also, but this is slightly different because this type of problem solving is more often open-ended. It can come out on the UI. It can also come out on the backend, like how to do proper load balancing, how to do sharding, and all that in a way that makes sense for this particular an environment, or this backend environment. So and there are some, of course, there are some knowledge books out there about how to do this, but it still takes time and efforts to think through and to go through, like for this particular instance, what is the best solution here, or and also how to plan it out such that the work can go forward without impeding other teams. I think this is also one part of it, because everyone usually is working on like one big code base. So then how to split up the work such that maybe putting it into a separate branch and then developing from there, or maybe just creating a separate instance on the back end, or certain things like this. How to make sure that everyone can move forward at the same time. So again, this is a problem solving on a scale that is that is just beyond personal, or beyond the framework itself. It also requires collaboration with other teams, understanding what their deadlines are, and so on. So from the perspective of within a company, the problem solving is slightly different and requires slightly different skills, interpersonal skills, and also understanding of the code base, and also there's no more time limit like in an interview whereby you have to come up with a solution right away. So that's sometimes more challenging and also more satisfying once you come up with a solution. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
We
Thank you.
appreciate You Quan, and nice, really good question as well, Shivam. Just going before the next person, I would like to just give a shout out to the people who joined from LinkedIn. I'm seeing some comments in my screen, so I'm just saying, hey, Kumpu, Betul, Shivam Anand, and then we have Abdul Umit. So there are a few questions popping up in the LinkedIn. So if you guys are LinkedIn, YouTube, or any other platform, we will have a Q&A with the audience which are out there. So please do ask questions in this platform. So I'm just gonna pick one question which just I saw it. It's interesting from Umit Taj, and in the question is, how often you are dealing with complex algorithm in your daily life? So which is, that's going to be a curious question, right? Where people
Yes.
might don't know that, like really, like you try to get a lot of what do you call it? Every day you try to work in a way, maybe routinely same thing over and over. But how often are you actually working in a complex algorithm, even if it is in a Google or Facebook or whatnot? So what's your response to that question?
Yeah. So, so this is part of the. So it depends on the field they're working in, and also this is part of, the difference between the interview process and also the actual daily work, right? So in the interview process, people try to test for algorithms. So part of it is the problem solving skills and critical thinking skills that are being tested. How fast can someone come up with a solution that can, for example, balance the space-time complexities and so on, how to optimize the runtime, how to minimize, for example, the writing of the code such that it is clean, is efficient, and so on. That is for the interview process. But then after that, then in the daily work itself. So I would say that for most of the time, for example, I used to work in front end. Now I'm working in machine learning infrastructure. I don't really deal with complex algorithms. If I see one, then I'll look through it and I'll understand, for example, how this algorithm work. But then so I'm more the complexities don't lie in, for example, the design of algorithm anymore. So it depends also on the field that you're working in. So for example, if you're working in on the back end, right? Then, or if you're working on the kernel level, OS kernel level, then definitely there are still there's still algorithms there that, for example, determine what should be the process of, let's say, how to distribute a calculation, right? How to work in a distributed environment, or maybe how to do load balancing. So all these require certain understanding of algorithms, how to prevent deadlocks, and so on. Right? So there is still some use of algorithms, and if it's on the back end. Also in the field of machine learning as well, there's a lot of research on things, and also how to compute things faster, more easily, and also, for example, how to design a machine learning model that requires knowledge of machine learning algorithms, I'd say, but that is more specific to the field of machine learning, which is quite different from traditional algorithms. And so these are different areas that require different daily use of algorithms. On the other hand, for example, in the field of fintech, people actually use more algorithms on a daily basis because they have to optimize their calculations. They have to make sure that whatever data they receive from the latest stock price, they can quickly calculate and then send out like a request to buy or sell. So there is still a lot of focus on the algorithms part, how to make things run more efficiently. But of course, part of it is just to cut down the distance to the stock exchange. Yeah. So I'd say that depending on your field and also daily use. But for me personally, I don't really use or design algorithms on a daily basis. But the complexities that I deal with are more like what I've described earlier. Complexities of the project, working with people, and also complexities of dealing with a large code base. Let's say there are other teams contributing to a code base, and they wrote like 100,000 lines of code, and then so how do you manage it? How do you make sure that the code is well tested and so on? So these are different complexities, that we deal with afterwards as a software engineer.
Really, thank you so much. Again, some of those things comes only with our experience, which we come across over the period of time. And with my experience also, we don't really do a complex algorithms every day, because we might need to face some fire, which we have to deal with it. And how are we going to solve that problem? And it's all about dealing a situation. Probably that's what we need to most come across. But one of those things which I feel like the best algorithm, or one of the key questions which I would ask, is that, like, how does the Google map works? What is the algorithm behind that? Like, like to find the shortest route in the world, not just like, your local place, right? In the world, if you want to travel from where to where. So that's an algorithm which is like have to solve in a millions of people gonna affect with it. Think about that algorithm screws you up, and then you go to end up in a lake or something instead of an hospital, how that it would be life threatening for you. So the importance of creating those kind of algorithms would be really, really, really difficult. At the same time, it has to be dealt with in a fashion that multiple engineers might be working across to find that optimized solution. So it's not that easy to come across and deal with it, and you may not be end up being developing something new every day, but obviously there are things which you have to come across as well. So really good point, and again I can share along with the same idea of how it is.
Yeah, and also to add to Tophe's point, actually, it also depends on the phase of the company. So, for example, within Google Maps, there's already many algorithms that, for example, that calculates, for example, the distance, and they probably do some sort of Dijkstra and then try to search from both ends, and then try to find the highways and so on. So the algorithms are already there, and they were written like 20 years ago, and maybe improved over time. But then this is for established products, established software. But then for, let's say, a company in the startup phase, then there's a lot of need for writing all the basic algorithms. Even they might use a library that already has a good sorting and all that. But then there are still algorithms that need to be built for that specific product. So for startups, there is more usage of these algorithms as well to build it up, and then over time, these algorithms slowly get more optimized, and most likely they just become like at the bottom of the framework, whereby at some point in time nobody really need to touch them anymore, and just build on top of it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, You Quan. So just now, I'm just gonna invite somebody who is a mom who has been graduated some time ago. Now she's going to restart her career in terms of becoming a software engineer, and we at Archis really promote women empowerment, at the same time bringing moms back to the work, which is one of the key points which we have our as a mission in our root level, which we and most success rate in terms of getting people to get their job is from the moms community, which we have, and we are so proud of that. And we keep thriving that goal towards like bringing the people like Anna over here to the podium to get her get her back to the work culture, getting interacting with the network over the tech industry. Those are the key points which we are looking for. Anna, why don't you ask a question which you have anything in your mind, and then if it is, You Quan will provide his viewpoint.
Yeah, I surely have. Hi, You Quan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, this is my first time meeting you. Thanks to Tofi and Archie's team. So I do have a lot of questions, to be honest. So my first one would be, I am 29 years old. I am a mom on the personal side. I worked in a healthcare marketing side. Now I'm thinking of switching to tech world. So sorry for my little one's voice in the background. So yeah, what would you advise or suggest for a career switcher like me to start preparing for a tech job, say in a Fang Mang company, or let's say a startup company? What do startups look for in an intern? What do you think?
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Anna. So, I guess there are many people who want to step into the software engineering industry, right? So one of it is that depending on company, it could have possibility for remote work, possibility for more flexible work hours, and ability to balance between your life and also your work. Right. So especially as a mom, yes, I totally understand that. And yeah. So then part of it is that so in the software engineering world nowadays, there are many ways to showcase your work. In the past, it's more like, okay, we have a resume, and then we try to get recruiters to look at it, and it's hard, right? But nowadays, there are ways to be more proactive as a software engineer, things that you can prepare over time. So other than preparing like for the actual interview, the on-site, the coding questions, other things that will help is, for example, having just building out your own website. Let's say you want to get into like front end or UI, right? Then you can just build a website. You can try to look up like the latest designs or the latest framework, like the latest version React or other frameworks that are in JavaScript, and then just put that together and then build your own website, and then add in some UI elements that are refreshing, interesting, or fun. Of course, there are many examples that we found on the internet nowadays. That building out your own website would help. And then when a recruiter looks at it and it's like, oh wow, and then you can showcase, for example, your interest outside of coding as well. I mean, I have also friends who created their own website, and then they showcase like their interest in 3D modeling, or solving Euler problems, or whatever, some other interests. But or maybe even for yourself as a mom, maybe then you can find, for example, do a simple like a website to showcase like your family life, a slideshow of the images that automatically there's a carousel and other things that you can add on the website that makes it look appealing. Then when it's something that you can prepare on the site, is something that you can showcase. And also then you can also upload your code to, for example, GitHub. Then people can also look at your coding, and then if you, for example, just add a bit of code every day, right? Then on your GitHub history, you have things that you can show. Oh, this is an active coder. Yeah, this is someone who is really passionate about coding. So these are things, especially for me. For me, when I first tried to look for a software engineering job, I was actually studying physics, and then I decided that it's hard to actually look for a job in the physics market, because there's little funding for physics postdocs or professors. So then I decided switch to software engineering. And so then I had to find ways to put things on my resume. So these are some of the things that I did for, and also I had some friends who were quite entrepreneurial. So for example, we started out and tried to do some restaurant delivery ourselves. So we created a website using Angular, and then we just contacted some nearby restaurants, and we were like in the university at the time, in college at the time. So we just did like a website, a delivery service for the university students, catering to like the local restaurants. And then each time they use our service, they'll get a discount, or we can we could like discuss a group discount with the restaurant and so on. So just something that showcases some entrepreneurial passion, right? So these are things that help me put things together in my resume. And so that's part of it. But of course, and these are things that that one could prepare over time. It might take some time to find an idea, or even if the idea doesn't eventually work. So eventually, our restaurant delivery is sort of just faded away as we graduated from college. But yeah, it's still something that's good to put on the resume. That's as the first time to do an interview. And also I'll also say that for certain companies, for example, more traditional companies, they might only look for students which have completed a computer science degree, like a more traditional software company. But then some other software companies, for example, the FANG companies, these are more, they look for generalists. What I mean by this is that they look for people who have done, for example, one field, and they are capable, or they have the ability to show themselves that they are fully capable to transfer, bring certain skills over to another field. So especially for someone who's switching over to software engineering, then it will take some time to in your own personal space, like what you're good at, what are the transferable skills that you can bring over to software engineering. So for example, if you have done healthcare work, then have you interacted with the people who deal with the healthcare software? Have you seen some things that can be improved there? Then things like this. Then when you bring over certain skills to software engineering, then makes you a person with unique skills, because you have the intersection of both fields. Then you have to think about how to leverage your skills and how to showcase them, such that it can be something on your website, or some side hustle that you're doing, or it could be a side project, and so on. Yeah. So then when you're able to leverage that, that means your own personal unique skills, and then be able to build that up into a resume, then definitely there'll be some companies, especially the FANG companies, which would be more open and to accept people, or to be willing to give an interview, because these are the people who showcase the passion, their unique talents, and also their entrepreneurial side of them. Yeah, the ability to keep moving forward. Yes, I think that's what companies are looking for. So that's part of it. But of course, then there's the other part of interview preparation and so on, which will take time, because the interviews with the companies would not, for FANG companies, actually they have a high bar with respect to algorithmic problem solving skills. So then as a first step, for example, for me, my own personal journey was that after I graduated from graduate school, tried to look for a job. I went for an interview at Google, actually, but I did not get it on the first try. So then I went to Wolfram. That's where I met Tofi, and then I gained skills as a front-end engineer over time. And then I went and interviewed for Google again, and this time I put in a lot more effort to actually to prepare sufficiently for the interview, and then I was lucky enough to get in. So I think definitely it is possible through just with all the materials that's out there on the internet, through leak code, the books and so on. There's a lot of resources to help you. So you can look up all these, and also to prepare really for the interview, and also to keep to not be disappointed. Just keep trying, and also to keep yourself on a positive outlook. Like always, as a like even if you for me, I didn't get in to like the FANG companies on first try, but it's okay. I just go out there, work for a company which is willing, and then I can learn skills as a software engineer, and then build on my resume, and then slowly move forward ahead. Yeah, with time. Yeah.
One more question. I'm sorry. So yeah, is there a specific language that a company looks for example, Python? What do you suggest? Should I master one language, or is it like, do they look at multiple languages?
Yeah. Okay. So for different companies, again, it's different. So for example, for more traditional software companies, they tend to look for someone who already has expertise in certain fields. So for example, if you're applying for a backend job, then they'll look for expertise in Java or C++. If you're applying for a front-end job, then they'll look for, like, if you worked with JavaScript, HTML, CSS, or React, or Angular or other front-end frameworks. If you're looking for machine learning jobs, then they'll look at whether you have done Python before, or use frameworks like R or TensorFlow, all these, right? So language and frameworks. But on the other hand, for like FANG companies, they are more looking for, they know that engineer which is applying for a FANG company usually has very strong learning ability. So then whatever experience they were coming with, let's say you were your front-end engineer, they will try to test you in their area, or but they also know that if you want to learn any other language, let's say you learn JavaScript, but then you want to learn you want to go to the backend and do some let's say on the backend server, and then you want to spin up, let's say, a node.js and do some work there, or maybe use some other backend frameworks, then they know that an engineer can easily pick it up. So then they don't really focus on the language so much. So I say that depending on the type of company that you're applying for, the kind of what kind of environment or tier of the software engineering stack you want to work on, then just focus on that. I'd say that the front end work usually has is more I would say less demanding in terms of the having to solve for, let's say, algorithmic complexities and all that, and that is something also very fulfilling, especially for me in the beginning, because when I write code, then I can see on the screen, then I can see what I am actually coding. So this helped me a lot when I was beginning to learn coding. I can actually interact with the elements. If I change a CSS, then I can see the color change and so on. So front end was easier for me to start as a software engineer, and whatever and also it's important to focus on the language that you like to actually work on. So for example, in my first interview with Google, which I didn't get in, I was more focused on JavaScript, but I also listed I had also some knowledge about C++ and Java, but then I did not actually practice too much in them. So in the end, when the interviewers came over, then there were some questions which were more suited to be solved in, let's say, Java or C++. But then I realized that while I can code in them, it's easier for me to code in an IDE than to code on a whiteboard. So that's something that in the individual process, I recommend getting practice for as well. So that means if you're interested in, let's say, the front-end UI work, then just go ahead and practice JavaScript. Learn about in JavaScript there are questions about the language itself. For example, using JavaScript closures or using the latest ES6 or maybe TypeScript or maybe certain frameworks like React or Angular, and then to really use them such that it becomes something that you know very well. Yes, and then and also it's possible to prepare for these interviews ahead of time. One type of questions would be on the language itself. Each language has different types of questions. The other part of it is the problem-solving part, right? So when you're prepared for both kinds, then it's easier and easier to feel confident and also to tackle the problems that come up in the interview. So yeah, so that's what I would recommend. Simply to understand, maybe have a high level understanding of the different areas, different fields, and then decide on what you want to focus on, and then just focus on it. Yeah, and become very good at it. Yeah.
Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anna, for the question, and really appreciate you, Quan, for providing your viewpoint on that. Mostly at Archie's Academy, we focus on the front-end development because that's mostly have the more new opportunities which are there at this point of time because of the reason the technologies has changed from what in the recent last 10 years, and there's a lot of application which is already out there has to be migrated to this new frameworks or the new way of developing the front-end application. So there is a lot of requirements are coming in. So as a fresher who is going to start, or people with only 6 months of experience, that's the whole point which we are trying to make it. You have a 6 months of experience, how you can land in a job. So in that short period of time, we can't really get somebody really great in Java maybe, but we do provide somebody who is coming in Java with some amount of experience, how they can end up being a Spring Boot developer or things like that. That's why we are focusing on. And JavaScript, one good thing is about right now is that you can be a front-end developer or a backend developer by using Node.js, or even a QA can just start with manual testing and learn Cypress along the way, and then become an automation engineer to become a dev. So that's the path which we kind of follow in a way that you have more and more opportunities out there. The goal is not to we want to make sure somebody getting a job opportunity in a very decent company. It can be a startup, it can be a product based, it can be service oriented, but the goal is to land in a job with the appropriate skills which we have. So we focus on the language but more of the product building, as you know that a person who need to know right from the requirement gathering till like the deployment stage. And those are the one of those things people might not be experienced enough when you started with nothing. And and especially the trainees like who we concentrate, moms like Anna and other people in Archie's Academy, they have the hustle of already trying to make sure that the family need to make sure that the baby is good and things like that. And then along with that, how are we going to maintain this career which we're going to set forward in the future? So it's like a struggle but worth fulfilling. And there are numerous mom who just one of the trainee who just now gave birth like a couple of weeks ago actually, who's from US, and like she was doing really great like in 5 months. And then she took 1 month of leave, like saying that, hey, I'm tough, I'm gonna break 1 month, but I'm gonna come back and with more strong. I'm like, I have no doubt on her because at some point of time she's gonna crack it no matter what. But her consistency is the key over here. Day to day they are putting they're making sure that they're determined. And I'm really proud to say that most of the moms out here, or the people who are trying to switch the career, do their complete effort. So really appreciate. And I want to give a one shout out to our partners who are also helping out in this journey. For example, we have a partner in India, TKM ICTP, who is giving us the ability to have offline training, because there are parts of the world you might not have. There are two things which a software engineer, if you want to be good at in terms of training, that is basically having a good laptop. You need to have a laptop or a desktop to start doing something, and having a good internet. But unfortunately, there are parts of the world who personally they might not be able to afford it to start with. So if that's the case, how are they gonna start learning if they don't have the necessary tools? They may not be. It's not that expensive in the countries like States, but there are countries like in African countries, there are countries in India or in other parts of the world which a person cannot really afford a good laptop to start with to do the training. So we collaborate with a lot of companies, and we are still partnering up with companies along the way. And one of them is TKM ICTP from India, where they provide their lab facility to go there physically from the region, so they can get trained with the with the lab computer lab, so that they continue. If somebody does not have any laptop, they provide the facility, and at the end of the day, if they get job, they can buy themselves. At the end of the day, that's the whole point. You're investing in yourself. And another partner is in Turkey, which is known as Success Campus, which is like collaborating in a lot of universities in Turkey, especially they are providing question and answers, to solve the problems of what they have. And they are also driving towards Archie's Academy to make sure that to get this mentor. So big shout out to our partners who come along the same journey to embrace this one. Last but not least, we have one more person in this in this group, Vinayak. I would like to. He's from in India. Just to want to point out, there was recently a big flood happened in India and Pakistan. To be honest, there are complete, a couple of countries. So and one of the affected countries, places in India was Bangalore, where Vinayak is from, and it was really badly flooded. So my deepest, I'm just saying, I am also being sad to see that with the parts you are at, as well as the part where in Pakistan is also at. There are so many people suffering there. I hope everybody will back to the normal life soon. But Vinay, over to you. What's your question?
Thank you, Kofi. Hi, Yuan. If you could tell me, how do you keep up with the current trends and advances in the field? Because we all know something about computer sciences. It changes frequently. The trends changes very quick. The technologies changes quick. So how do you keep up with it?
Yeah. Hi, Vinay. Thanks for the question. Uh, so yes, part of it is that a lot of things, for example, that is taught in a traditional college, some of it is useful, right? And actually, a lot of it is about the basics. But then when actually going out into the working world, especially after getting in a company, then each company has a different system. Some companies use open source frameworks. Some companies use closed source frameworks. So then different companies are different. So for example, in Netflix, they mostly use open source frameworks. So that makes it easier for someone else who has used some of the open source frameworks before, backend or front end, to actually work or ramp up if they get into like a company like Netflix. For example, in Facebook, they use their own products, React, right? So then it makes it also easier. For example, if you're interviewing for Facebook, then you can already use the open source frameworks they already have. For Google, we also have open source some frameworks as well. For example, Angular on the front end, and also there are other things that Google has open sourced. for machine learning as well. Kubeflow pipelines for on the front end. There we have something called closure templates as well, but I guess that's lesser known. But one way to keep up with the latest technologies is to look at, for example, the latest open source trends, and it's also just to get an idea of what people are using nowadays in front end frameworks. So I remember a few years back, while I was working in the front end, there was this so-called front end fatigue or JavaScript fatigue, whereby there were so many frameworks that came out in a year that made it difficult for front end developers to catch up. So that is something that could happen, right? And also eventually not all frameworks would actually become very be maintained in the long run. So it's good to but anyway, that is one way to keep up with like the latest trends, to look at the open source frameworks. Then another way, so there are also other trends that, for example, through use of machine learning, actually there are, for example, nowadays on GitHub, you can actually have a coding buddy which can do code completion with you. And for example, within Google, we have a similar functionality as well that can help us do code completion. So these are things that are helpful, that are, for example, using these would help us develop ourselves and look at code patterns that other coders use, or for example, how to structure if conditions. It's something that can be very simple, but then when you do them in the right way, it makes the code more readable, more maintainable, and so on. So some of these were available in, for example, code completion was available in IntelliJ by JetBrains way back a long time ago, maybe for 10 years or more already. But then to make it readily available using machine learning at a scalable in a scalable manner, that has been only done more recently. So this is a trend going forward, right? To have a collaboration with through machine learning, the computer would help you somewhat with the code as well. Of course, with latest trends in machine learning, of course, if you have seen the news, DeepMind has come up with an algorithm that actually can do competitive programming called AlphaCode. So I mean, if it's not 100%, of course, but then maybe gets it like 50% of the time. But the ability of the computer to come up with code that can solve difficult programming problems, that is really something quite amazing. So going forward, I would think that this is something that would be a very fruitful area, whereby the pair programming with the computer itself, and then slowly more and more humans would interact less with the coding itself, because the coding becomes more and more automatic. But then humans can more focus on several aspects. One is the interaction. That means the UX, the UI, how the feel of the website, instead of getting down to the CSS or HTML. So that's one part. And then so as to make things more interactive, make things more human friendly. I think that's one part. And then another part is the use of machine learning. Definitely, it will continue, and also to make it something that can be easier to integrate into our daily lives as a software engineer. So I think that's another area to look out for. But of course, that is something. Machine learning is something that requires a lot of technical expertise, and also a lot of time to learn. But there are a lot of rewards from there. Of course, nowadays there are free courses online to learn about machine learning and how to get started. But of course, to do it at the level of the research level, that is still something very difficult. But then it's also good to keep a lookout for trends in the direction as more automation takes over. And so these so I say that these two things are ways to keep up. But also then the other part is once within a company. So for example, within Google, we use a lot of our own technology inside from within Google. And some of these tech stacks have been built over time, let's say in the past 10, 20 years. So a lot of it could be legacy code, but also there have been a lot of good ideas that have been accumulated over the years in which we built our frameworks. So then it is, I would say that going back to what I mentioned earlier, it's important to, talk with senior engineers that's on the team to understand like the history of the code base or history of the frameworks, and look at how to make things better in the future. That is helpful, instead of just another way just to dig through the code, which will take a long time. But yeah, really talking to someone who has an overview understanding of like the history really helps. Yeah.
Thank you so much, You Quan. Thank you so much, Vinayak, for the question. Really appreciate it. We are almost that time of what we are thought of, but I'll take two questions from the audience, which has been questioned in YouTube. First one is from one of our latest trainee, Altran. We always mention about what to do in order to get a job. I want to ask, what should we not do? That's a very good question. Could you please tell about the mistakes of a former experience? That's a really valid one. I mean, which is something which an experienced person should be teaching. Where like, hey, you should not do that. That's what mostly. Very valid, good question, Alfred. You Quan, your thoughts?
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Alperin. And this is a very good question, and I like to just go into it. Several things that are in my former experience on my first try in trying to interview for Google. So one thing was that I definitely prepared for the interview, but I did not prepare in a sufficient or proper way. What I mean by this is that nowadays the interviews, different companies still use different ways of interviewing. So for example, back then the interviewing with Google was still on the whiteboard. Nowadays, they might have a laptop, and it's possible to just code like in a text editor. But depends on different companies. Some companies still use the whiteboard coding. So this means that on the first try, I thought that, okay, maybe writing code on a whiteboard should be quite easy, right? Because I know how to code. So I did practice problem solving and so on online through LeetCode and other platforms, and then read some books about coding, and I thought that, okay, I'm ready. So then I got the phone interview, and then I did the coding, and then I got to the on-site. So the on-site is where the whiteboard experience is. And then I realized that the whiteboard experience is very different, right? The ability coding in IDE or even in text editor is very different from whiteboard. So the second time around, I actually spent time like 2 weeks to a month to first prepare for the interview. Second, to actually not only solve the problems, but also to write the code on the whiteboard itself. So and on the whiteboard is like there's no backspace, you can erase, but then so the experience is very different. So one thing is to actually prepare for the things that actually occur at the interview. So that's very important. Depends also on the place we're interviewing for. If, for example, if they use a text editor, right? Then you have to prepare yourself using a text editor. I mean, it's not really an IDE, but just a text editor without indent or automatic indent tabulation and automatic code completion without brackets completing and so on, right? The environment is very important. Then secondly is that in the interview. So for example, for Google interviews, usually it's about 45 minutes to an hour for each interview, and it's 5 interviews in a day. So then one really needs to be prepared, like to get some whatever that can boost your energy. That's very important. Whatever snack or food or drinks that you might use to boost your energy. That's very important to keep yourself energized through the whole process, and also to really optimize and to get to the answer very quickly. So what I mean by this is that, for example, I could code binary search, right? Definitely. But then I was not proficient in my first try to code binary search. Just write it out on the board, just like this, right? I could get there, and then I could write correct code, but then it could be more optimized. And so so then what is important is that it is important to really practice to the point whereby you are very proficient at writing standard algorithms, for example, a binary search, or maybe sorting or maybe traversing a tree, to the point whereby you can just write it out on the whiteboard at one go without any need for changes. So that just takes practice. It takes time, right? So then that's another thing. And then one thing is, another thing would be just to communicate also with the interviewer. So a lot of times sometimes we might think that, oh, the interviewer is here to test us, but actually the interviewer is more like a collaborator. If there are some clarification, if there are some questions on for example, the problem that interviewer is giving, then it's important to understand and clarify. So I think that is important, and also to treat the interviewer as like a friend, to communicate and ask, and also to always voice out like what your thought process is, so that the interviewer will understand. Because the role of the interviewer is just simply to ask the question, take notes of your thought process, take notes of your problem solving process, and then also take notes of the code that you have written. So the more feedback that you give, for example, okay, now I'm thinking of how to solve this using this data structure, how to solve this using this algorithm, this is the time complexity that I think would be, I'm trying to see how I can do this traversal and all that, to communicate always with the interviewer. Yeah. So I think this would be helpful to anyone who is going through the interview process. Yeah.
Avoiding, yeah. I mean, it's a very, very genuinely really valid question. So, I mean, I'm glad that, like, at least there is a number of things which we probably want to avoid it, which we come across. It depends upon person to person as well. Like, you Quan, your experience is what you are trying to. So that's all about the experience. And then even the latest batch which we just now joined, we had a session, I think, yesterday, where we gone through our GitHub, the project which they are doing in the first phase, and we were going through that like review process where we were able to mention what all things they should have avoided it in the first place. And those things they don't know, so they don't know whether or not it's a mistake or not an industry standard. So those are the things, as a mentor, as a trainer, which we are trying to point out, hey, this is not exactly what you need to do like this, we can improve it in this way. Because how can you make a mistake if you didn't know that was a mistake in the first place? That's all about, like, you go through that journey and to find out whether or not that can be corrected. So I'm really glad that, like, you pointed out all the things about the interview questions. But that being said, that, like, I know that we already passed the time, so I would like to conclude this session altogether. And I really appreciate all the people who joined today live in different streams. I really appreciate you, Quan, to find your time again. Really thank you so much, being a mentor of so many people who is trying to help in one way or another. Because the amount of effort which we are giving back to the community of your knowledge is really valuable, in a way that you are producing a new You Quan, which you could have been better of yourself, and that you couldn't do when you were, like, initial phase. That's how I see when I am trying to train people who didn't have any experience, or who didn't have, how can I make people better? And sometimes that's the way how I see them. Like, when I identify some people on, okay, this is me as a form which I would like to perfect it out when they start, which I have no idea about what they are going to go through. And then I try to make sure that, okay, if I was you, I have gone through this one, but I don't want you to go through this path, and it's better to go in this fashion. It will reach there because that's the path that I already gone through, and I don't want them to go. So that helps a lot of people's life in terms of getting them fast track in their journey into it, get a good career. And I would really appreciate all the mentors out there who is in Archie's Academy or even in any other platform out there, be a different platform out there who is trying to help people into their software industry. It doesn't really matter whether or not it's in Archie's Academy or not. I just want to give a shout out to all the mentors out there who is helping out. And I just last but not least, like, I want to make sure that the people who are listening, if you are a person who is like, especially people like Anna, who is a mom who is being sitting and then don't know where to start with, and scared about whether or not you are able to be performed, like, whether or not, like, what stage you are in and you don't know where to start with, and those kind of questions, if you are getting bothered a lot, please reach out to us or our community, or reach out to our trainees, even ask their journey how it is. So it's all publicly available. Go to LinkedIn, go to Instagram, go to any kind of format, or reach out to us, email or WhatsApp, whatever. We will try to see if you are a person who needed that help. We will try to help you with our sessions and assignments, and as well as workshops and mentor hours, etc. So with that being said, that again, I really appreciate you, Quan, once more. Thank you so much. Any last words before we wind up this session? There will be more in the future, but for this session, any last words before you wind up?
Well, thank you everyone for the questions, and I hope all of you have a good time at Archie's, and also feel free to reach out if I have any things you want to discuss, or anything that's with regards to careers of engineering, or just feel free. Yeah.
Really appreciate you, Kwan. Thank you so much, Ajay, Vinayak, Anna, and Shivam. And for the next session, when we have a next mentor, we will bring in more trainees from our academy to have in this panel. And this would be a way to make sure that you get noticed, and please build your network accordingly in LinkedIn and other places. That will really help. Thank you so much again, and I wish you everybody a happy weekend and have a rest of your day or night where you're located at this point of time. Thank you so much again. Really appreciate it. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. The last, before we wind up again, like, I want to add that if you guys want to reach out to us at Archie's Academy, you can visit our website. There is a skill test there. You can complete that one. We can, you can just easily sign up, and then we do have like a week trial if you want to see that how we are doing as our training. And then we can choose accordingly what kind of a training. We primarily focuses on front-end development, back-end development, project management, and QA testing. We also improvise your communication skills with the help of other trainers and mentors out there. We have a large group of community right now, and we are people who are growing in almost 30 plus countries, and we are a globally formed community, so that our diversity helps us to make sure that you can work in a multicultural company. And our team at Archie's Academy really focuses on your career in terms of making sure that you get a successful placements in the company after our training is done. Why we are different in terms of other companies is basically we are focused on more of a training than becoming a boot camp per se. So that means that you build experience in this short period of time, and that experience resonates to your resume, and then we will be able to take your mock interviews and such like that. So if you have friends, or if you have people who are looking forward to start your career in software development or a product development, reach out to us in various platforms like in LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or WhatsApp, mail, anywhere. So we are very active in all this. and then we will be able to help you out. That being said, that again, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate, and I wish you all a happy weekend. Bye-bye.